And we're live.
Sounds good.
So, you've been working with family for the last, what, 35 years, almost 40 years.
37 years. Yeah.
How have you been able to successfully do that? Because a lot of people that work with family can't make it work.
That's interesting that you asked that because in our marketing today, we met someone that gave us a few examples of things that, haven't worked out. Um, it's worked out with the family. It's a give and take from everyone. But if there's any recipe out there, I think that mutual respect is extremely important. Respect for each other. And that goes for family as well as other employees. But with family, you bring it home. And in case of working with your kids, like sons or daughters, or working with your wife, or working with uncles and nephews, um, when you're in the business setting, the business takes precedence, okay? And you have to have mutual respect for each other. You can't bring personal things into it because if
Yeah.
you do, you're dead.
Yeah. And one thing is also like not, I would say, not giving special treatment to family. Because just because it's the relative, they're treated a certain way, that you lose respect amongst your team members, employees, everybody. And it's so interesting. Some people say they love working with family, and other people say
They hate it.
they can't.
They don't like it.
So, but you've been able to do it for so long, so respect is one of the biggest things.
It's the biggest thing. However, the point you bring up is crucial also. I would say that's way up there too. Because in our case, okay, anybody that was a family member, in our particular businesses, they were held to a higher standard. In other words, there were no easy takes because you were family. On the contrary, if you were family, we drove you harder.
Yeah.
You had to work harder. You had to do things longer. You had to be first there and last out. And that was plainly visible to everybody else
Yeah.
uh, in the employment setting.
Yeah.
So, for example, in one of the businesses, I remember one time that there were a couple of things that didn't work out, and my oldest son was involved, and another employee. And so I had addressed the employee, and she said, "Well, if this is what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to your son?" And my reply was, I looked at her and I said, "Oh, it's going to be 10 times harder than this." And you know what? She smiled because she knew it was true. And she had been with us many, many years. And she continued to be with us many years.
Yeah.
But she knew that it was going to be worse to the other member of the family because by the nature of the beast, she knew it. She believed it. It was,
Yeah, I think
you're held to a higher standard.
and you were saying with our marketing earlier today, we're speaking with someone who brought up the Liborio family, which was a very successful in Southern California Latin market, right?
Correct.
And that unfortunately wasn't able to pass the business to the generations. It stopped, I think, at the second generation, which were the children who didn't properly know how to run that business. So if you're not only are you working with family, but you're holding them to an extremely high standard, teaching them from the bottom up, then when you pass the business to them or they buy the business or whatever ends up happening, they actually can maintain it and grow it as opposed to destroying it. And then think of all the employees, not only just the family business, but all the employees that lost jobs. And so it's an example of, we can use it like a lesson, right? It didn't work in that situation, but it's worked in other situations that we see as examples.
Yeah, all you can do is try your best. I don't know exactly what happened with the supermarkets, but I met the gentleman twice in passing, and we were able to shake hands and speak briefly. I had a great deal of respect for him because I was extremely proud. You know, we're countrymen and super, super successful. And the stories that I have heard of him were tremendous.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Um, you know, I'll tell you something quickly. There was this um, brokerage that it was extremely successful, and it was managed by two people that learned to the stock market and everything, but didn't have degrees. The firm was sold to two gentlemen. One had a degree from Stanford, and the other one a degree from another prestigious university. I don't remember which one. Not to put them down in any way or form. And within 3 years of the sale, these two folks ran the business into the ground. So, you know, it what is the formula? You got to have some common sense. You got to have a great deal of respect. Is family involved? You got to hold the family to a higher standard than any other employee, so it can never come back to bite you.
Yeah.
Um, so those are some of the ingredients. But there are no guarantees. You got to keep your eyes on the ball at all times, because if the economy is changing completely, the field that you're in is changing completely. We are involved in real estate. We are involved in insurance. And my goodness, they have changed tremendously throughout the years.
All industries.
All
You know.
industries,
Yeah.
all companies.
Yeah. I mean, look at the big one people like to bring up is Blockbuster, that Netflix came and they weren't able to adapt fast enough, or it was too late at that point, right? And so now you have Netflix and all these streaming services. But, where do you see bringing up the economy? You've gone through different cycles, 2008, 2000, all these different stock market and housing market drops, crashes. How do you see us moving forward? I know you're always optimistic, but realistic in the next 6 months and then the next 5 years.
I think that we're going to be looking at some difficult times, and we need to prepare ourselves for them, because we have printed a tremendous amount of money. And that money, that printing of so much money is going to come back and bite us. It's biting us right now. Okay? Everything is super expensive, and salaries are
Inflation.
not keeping up. Yeah, inflation, and salaries are not keeping up. So I think we're going to be facing very difficult times. Having said that, in difficult times, okay, is when the people that are prepared make a tremendous amount of money. Okay? So we are going to be going through some very hard times. Um, Make sure that you try to buy assets. Somebody said the other way, well, if the other day, if we got difficult times coming, but we haven't been able to save, we're not going to be able to take advantage of those times.
Yeah.
And that's true. But not losing what you have is already a plus.
Yeah.
Because I remember 2008 very, very well. And I didn't lose, what I had, but I saw the equities in the properties dwindle down to almost nothing. And that was tremendously to watch. It was hard to watch. And so we're gonna be facing hard times, and we just have to, tighten our belts and go through it.
Yeah. Well, there's already signs that we're going through difficult times. The other side to it is that we see people opening new businesses, making large investments into new restaurants and cafes. And so some businesses went out and have gone under, and then some emerge new, and it's kind of like the cycle. It seems, you're always gonna have businesses that fail, and then new businesses that come in and try to innovate. Some will make it and others won't, but it's cool to see that people are still have that entrepreneurial spirit and want to create something unique. And like the gentleman opening the cafe that we
Who's on Monday?
I mean, he had spreadsheets down to the cent,
Oh my goodness.
measuring what the profit margin was on a sandwich, on a coffee, and he's trying to create something unique, and I think he'll be successful. But what do you think, since we like going to coffee shops and cafes and little breakfast spots, what do you think? Because we were talking about what makes a place unique, because you can get food anywhere, but we've been talking to a lot of people that own restaurateurs lately. Is that how you say it? Restaurateurs, and some that have unique places, and we're like, what is it that makes it unique? Because when you drinking your coffee there, it's like you get energy not only from the coffee, but the people there and the ambiance that's there. So what do you think it is that those places have, the successful ones?
We're fortunate that we can go to a lot of places,
Yeah,
and experience what you and I perceive as this is successful, this is not, this is
Right.
what it's missing and stuff, and we're pretty critical of it between you and I. We don't share it, of course, with the other folks because somebody might be offended or not take it well. We don't know them well enough. But I'll tell you this. Of course, the food has to be good.
yeah,
Okay? The food has to be good. But right up there with the food, I think, is the employees, their attitudes, how they receive the clientele, how their service is done.
the culture.
Oh, yeah. Way up there. The music, the way they set their designs on the walls, the pictures. There are restaurants they just have that welcoming effect,
Yeah,
even before somebody opens up their mouth. And
Yeah.
then, that's extremely important. But you have to
good
have
food, good people working
good people.
there, and that's
then
what creates
and
it.
I think that's what creates the ambience. Music, I like music, so the music is good to me too.
Yeah.
If they have nice, lively music, it's great.
Yeah,
And it's like for example, there's one in particular I'm thinking of. They got like on the outsides, it's similar to cobblestones in Europe. They're playing French music, European music. They've got a couple of sandwiches that are titled provinces in Italy and in France, and you got this ambience that gets created, and it's super cool, and I like going there.
yeah.
So yeah, food, the people, and then the ambience, the decoration.
What about the location? And what about, because when I'll drive by a place, and if I don't see anybody at that place, I might still give it a try it, a cafe or something. But seeing people at a place brings more people in.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like the saying, you gotta have money to make money, which I disagree with. But if you have a good quality, let's say coffee, a really good something unique you're bringing, or pastries, and people start gravitating towards that. When people drive by or see it online, it brings more people. But for some reason, some places that maybe are in a bad location, like hard to get to, hidden.
Oh, for sure
sometimes
that affects it. For sure that affects it.
Yeah,
If I am driving to a place and the area is very dark, is not well lit, or it's hard to get to, and I have to make like a U-turn to get into it and stuff like that, of course that affects it. That affects
Yeah.
it a lot. I suppose if you have a clientele, you can overcome some of those things. Like for example, I, I know that In and Out is in a couple of places where sometimes I look at them and they seem slightly awkward, but yet their lines are packed.
Yeah, they have a name already.
In and Out. So, they're full all the time, no matter where they're located. And I would say they have very good locations. And lately, when they open up, I think they open by freeways and stuff like that. So the signs are visible from the freeway. So, you can get out here, this and that. But the older locations, sometimes I think, or one or two of them that I can think of, but they're still packed.
Yeah.
But if you do that with another restaurant that doesn't have let's necessarily the name, it's going to be so. Location is extremely important,
Yeah.
no doubt about it.
Yeah. And some places have something unique, like the food is from Venezuela or from part of Portugal, or so they bring something that stands out, something different versus just regular
Just a ham and
food or
cheese.
something,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of cool too, that their own twist. But because coffee is coffee, but it's interesting how it brings people together. You know, I was thinking about it the other day, and I had heard this somewhere that like the act of sharing and having coffee with someone, it's a ceremonial, act.
Yeah.
It goes back who knows how long.
Oh my God.
Who knows what thousands of years.
I would
long,
say.
who knows
Yeah,
how long.
for sure.
And what do you think it is about coffee that so many cultures are attracted to, or they gravitate towards it? It doesn't matter. You can go to Latin America, you can go to the Caribbean, you can go to the Middle East. What do you think that is, that all those cultures have a love for coffee, it seems?
I think, well,
North America, so yes,
yeah, all over the
anywhere.
place. It's the taste. The working with the beans. There are different styles, different tastes. It's you could say the same thing about tea.
Yeah.
But it
Coffee.
is somewhat ceremonial because you sit down with someone and you drink something. It's like breaking bread. You're partaking, and usually there's a good conversation or a very important conversation that goes with it, whether it be business, personal, for
Family.
fun, family.
Yeah.
And it's a time to sit with someone and enjoy and share.
Yeah.
I always say that there's three things that unites the world. Number one is sports. Like, look at soccer now with the World Cup. I think everybody and their mother is watching it. I don't know how many millions of people. So
Oh yeah.
it's sports. Music is another thing that unites the world.
Yeah.
And then food. And coffee is part of that third one.
Yeah.
So most certainly.
Yeah.
I enjoy sitting down and having a cup of coffee with someone like we did this morning for breakfast. And you talk about everything.
Yeah.
It's a communion. You get together with people and you enjoy each other's company, and the coffee just makes
Yeah.
it better.
Yeah, and it's a way. I think those three things: music, food, and
Sports.
sports, are a way of passing down a certain culture too.
Of course.
Because the certain foods that come from wherever you come from, or the music, all of that, sports, is a way of keeping that culture alive, which I think is really important. I think most cultures in the world have a lot of good things. Some of them, there's some things that maybe they can improve on, but I think one of the big things that you always bring up is pretty much everybody out there just wants what the other person wants, which is to take care of their family for the most part, right? I mean, people are just looking out. You can say, oh, everyone's looking out for themselves. Well, they're looking out for the well-being of them and their closest circle.
Sure. That's exactly right. And it's not necessarily just looking out for themselves, but it's what everybody wants. You want to make a decent living and take care of your loved ones, your kids, and see them grow up and, you know, uh, prosper. Everybody wants the same thing
Yeah.
to one degree or another. No, no missing on that. I believe that everybody wants the same thing. So once we realize that, that makes us all the same. We're all the same. And before you realize it, many years have gone by.
Yeah.
I mean, time is going by so quickly. Like the other day, one of my friends, he was doing some plumbing work at one of the properties, and we were speaking, and he said that his little girl is 10 years old. And I said, wow, I thought she was younger. And he says, so did I. And he looked at me and he says, look, to me, it seems like she was 2 years old yesterday.
Yeah.
So time, you know, it's flying by, and we all want the same thing. And before you know it, you're 30, 40, 50, 60. It just goes by quickly.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say? I mean, look at
Yeah.
you now.
Yeah, no, I think it goes by quickly when you're constantly, we live in a very fast paced also environment, right? So I don't know how life would be. I can speak from my perspective, but someone who, let's say, is in a small, very small town, how is life for them? Does it pass as fast? Um, you bring up that really we all want the same thing. And when you think about it, when we all want the same thing, and you look at life like that, and we're more alike than different, I think that we would all get along a lot better too. Because even though somebody maybe is born from a different place, or they are of a different religion than you, or just have different beliefs, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. So, you know, I've spoken to people that are not able to separate, let's say, their belief from, let's say, who they are. So, like, for example, an idea, whether it comes to politics or just an idea that you have that you think this is the right way. If I don't agree with you, we can agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, we still want the same thing. So if we look at life like that, I think we all would get along a lot better too. Because if I disagree with you, I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking, let's say, an idea that you put out or something that you believe in, but we attach ourselves to these things.
Well, I agree. We need to have dialogue. We need to be able to talk to each other. And we need to be able to. Look, my parents came to this country because of the freedom that this country offered. And freedom of speech is extremely important. Now, you may not like what I say, okay? But I have the right to say it in this country. And although you don't like it, I can speak my mind anywhere. That is an extremely important thing.
Yeah.
Because we don't have to agree with each other, but it is important that when we disagree, we don't go to war with each other. Because when we stop the dialogue, we stop learning and growing.
Yeah.
And there may be something that you say that I did not originally agree with, but you mentioned this, and it may just go, whoof.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Maybe, there is something there. And then you start, and that's how you grow, that's how you develop, and that's how things should be on a friendly basis. Just because you have a different idea than me, we shouldn't go to war.
Yeah.
And by war, I don't mean really literally war with, the countries and stuff, but I mean.
Cut the dialogue, let's
Yeah.
say, or just,
One of the 48 laws of power says when you become isolated, that becomes extremely dangerous. Because someone with an agenda can come in
Sure.
and change your mind on something.
I think
So
it's good to have conversation with people that you don't necessarily agree with,
yeah,
because it tests your ideas.
sure,
You know,
you might be wrong.
you might be wrong,
I might be wrong.
and we change.
Hey, that's right.
We might think something today, and then tomorrow we think something else. You know,
That's
so
correct.
yeah, I think dialogue is very important, and I think that that's one of the things that we're always talking to people. I mean, I didn't naturally necessarily grow up that was me. I think I developed to be somebody that talks to people, and you approach somebody, you have no problem approaching people, um, for marketing or whatever it is. Like, you have no problem talking to people, right? But um, the the new generations, I wonder how they're gonna do. And it's not even only the new generations, because there are people that I know that are my age that don't like approaching people, and don't like, they're kind of more to themselves, and that's okay too. We're all different, and that's perfect. But with technology, and a lot of people blame social media and phones and all this technology that takes video games, that takes you away from interacting, let's say, with face to face, in a physical sense, to you being by yourself, or not going outside and things like that. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I know technology overall has brought a lot of good,
Oh
but
yeah. Well,
you know
the one thing that I have to say about that is, you're my son, so you only know me, you know, when you start setting memories, whenever that may be. I don't know,
a few
3 years
years old.
old, something like that. So I'm here to tell you today, I wasn't this outgoing, in my earlier years. In fact, I was a little bit reserved, okay? I changed over the years because I became a salesman. And if you're a salesman and you're reserved, you're not, you might sell a lot, but, me being a little bit more outgoing, my sales flourished. So I became a salesman, so I had to change. But I was originally a little bit on the shy side, a little bit reserved. So, but I remember making an effort to change. I identify that as, back then, whether I'm right or wrong, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but I identified it as a weakness
Mm.
because I wanted to talk to someone and I would hold back. And so this is way back. That doesn't happen to me now, and it hasn't happened in years because I'm a salesman.
Yeah.
I'll go and I'll talk to anybody, and not necessarily to try to produce something, but even if the interaction is just to say hello or whatever, you meet someone. And I've learned that in life, everything is about relationships, as far as my opinion is concerned. So, I wasn't, let's say, it wasn't as easy. It didn't come as easy. I learned. I taught myself. I went to
Read
classes.
books.
Yes, and
Yeah.
and so and so that's how, now I can, for years I can talk to anybody. But I wasn't like that.
Mm.
So I believe it's something that can be learned. Now, having said that, there are some people that have this gift.
Mm.
Like the gentleman we met on Sunday. This guy is just like, you know, absolutely.
He's got like a good energy, a
Oh,
very
Mr. Positivity. I
yeah.
mean, great energy. And he's happens to be the top salesman in his district, you know? So, because people gravitate towards him. Everything, he's coming from a good place, and he wants what's best for his client. So he produces what's a win-win situation. It's not like he wants to sell you the world so that he can benefit and then you don't.
Right.
That's not the case.
No, because you don't build a
No,
relationship
you
that way.
don't.
Yeah, in sales,
Exactly.
you find the right fit for the person at the time, and if you oversell it, then it's going to come back and bite you because they won't buy from you again, let's say. If
Yeah.
you undersell it, it could come back and bite you because you didn't properly sell it. So yeah, it's that art, and there's a lot of psychology that goes into it. And
If you have the other person's best interest at heart, you know, things are going to go well.
yeah,
But the minute you put yourself ahead of anybody else, eh, you
yeah,
know, you can't do that consistently and succeed in life. Because people are not stupid, you know? People know. People will read you loud and
absolutely,
clear, especially in today's day and age. Everybody's sharp.
yeah,
The access to the internet, information is at the tip of our fingers like this. Whenever I want to learn something, I go to YouTube. It's amazing.
yeah,
It's amazing,
yeah,
the
yeah.
data that's in there.
There's so much information that the other side is that it can be distracting. If you want to,
Guilty.
yeah, you
Yeah, I'm
could,
guilty.
because there it could just link. It's really good, the internet and the platforms that taking you down, and,
Oh,
and you staying on that platform as long as possible. That's what
oh,
they're designed for
yeah.
all of the platforms. How do we keep the user as long as possible, and it, ad revenue or whatever that means? The longer you're there, you know, it reminds me of at McDonald's. I had read one time that they make the colors of McDonald's a certain way, bright red and yellow,
Really?
and they make the seats uncomfortable. It's not meant to be a comfortable place that you hang around there for hours.
Oh, wow.
It's meant to be fast food.
It makes sense.
So you go in, you sit, and you move out. And another thing that I've heard is that certain restaurants, they make it very cold,
Oh, yeah.
the temperature. So they got the AC blasting whatever. It's meant for you to go in and go out, and so, but these platforms are meant to retain us as long as possible. Everyone's fighting for our attention. So if you want to learn something,
Wow.
one of the things that I've had to do is shut off certain distractions, because if not, I'll never get anything done. I'll never accomplish the task. There's so many things that pull at us, from notifications to emails to calls, texts, people reaching out, and then let alone going on social medias. And so one practice I'm doing now is, like, if I'm gonna go on, let's say Instagram, I go on there, I'll post something, and then I try to get off, because and I'm not perfect at it, but if not, I'll be on there,
Oh, yeah.
and before you know it, half an hour
Oh,
can
I'm
go by
guilty.
easy.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the most productive. Now you use it to learn things. You're using the internet to learn, and that is really powerful. It's something we didn't have. If you want to learn the piano or whatever, you can learn it. You can just find somebody who's teaching it, which is great.
Oh, yeah. Anything. Construction, welding, plumbing. I've gone into all that stuff because I knew very little.
Yeah.
Now, with the work you did on the foundation on that property, oh my goodness, I learned so much.
Yeah.
And but you said something very important. It's hands-on type of individual, okay? Because I see some people where they say, "Hey, you know what? Just get it done, and just give me the bill." And that also has its value. But I like getting involved. You like getting involved, and there's a lot of people that like getting involved. And I think that there's a lot to be said about that, because that leads to other things. Okay,
Yeah.
and so you learn it, and if you had made a mistake, you most likely won't make that mistake again. So it's cool. It's so much information on everything. You pick up a watch and you try to read about that watch, and then you get into another one. Tons and tons of information about cars. You read about one car, and then this other car that was invented, and this thing came out new, and this and that, and the progression. Psh, you can definitely get lost forever.
Yep.
There's so much information out there in every field.
I agree.
Medicine, surgery, all the advancements in surgery, okay? All the non-invasive diagnostic tests that get done nowadays. I mean, a myriad of things, that... So if you're a good researcher and you are faced with an issue, no matter what it is, nowadays you can become an expert by going into it and, spending a few months on it. Poof, done.
It's good, and it allows us to research things now, because before, information, let's say you had a couple sources, word of mouth, and then let's say a couple sources, but now if you hear something or see something or want to look into something, you can really do your homework. And I think that applies for anything. If somebody says something, hey, did you hear about this, that happened in the world, you can actually look it up and verify, and see the sources, and you don't just take people's word now. You could look into things a lot more. I think we have to be constantly researching and doing our own homework.
Yeah, well, I was reading an article the other day where a gentleman that he's quite famous. I can't think of his name right now, but he said, "Look, nowadays, if you there's so much information out there that all you have to do is go on the internet and dedicate a few months to that particular field, whether it be 8 months, 9 months, something of that nature." Okay, he was calling it 1 year's worth, and you become an expert and in that field, and then you go out there, and now you've learned a tremendous amount of information in that field where
Yeah.
you have become extremely valuable to some people. Okay, and they're talking about making quite a bit of money. In this particular case, I think they were talking about welding.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
and
Some sort of, um,
underwater.
yeah, but classes you can take or something like that.
Correct. And you get some of these trades. You
Yeah,
actually,
trade schools,
yeah, you actually get a diploma and
certification. Yeah.
and I mean, but man, exciting stuff that you look at it and you say, "Wow, I didn't know that that was being able to get done." I mean, there's tremendous amount of information out there
Yeah.
in everything.
Cool.
All right.
Anything else you want to
No, I
share
think
with the world?
we're good for now.
Our camera didn't die this time around.
Oh, that's good.
Our battery.
we're still on.
So
Sounds good. I kind of forgot that the camera was on for a second.
we'll finish with that.
All right.